Good evening. It's after 6 o'clock. We'll get kicked off. Thank you all for coming out. Draw this off a little more. I'd like to introduce some of our team members that are here today to answer some questions. And so as I call their name, you'll look around, they'll raise their hand. But we got starting with Mr. Russell Walters and Ryan Melanson right here and in the back there. Our communications team that helps put this together and does all the nice, great work you're going to see here today. We have Chief Corey Henry with the Houma Fire Department. Is he hiding? Oh, there's he's back there. Man, I couldn't even see you with the way that silhouette is behind you. I couldn't even tell it was you. I was like, he was hiding. We have Chief Travis Terrio with the Police Department. Can't miss him. He's right there. He's going to help us tonight. I meant because you got a blue background. Earl Hughes with Emergency Preparedness. Back there raising his hand. He's the guy that whenever we have hurricanes and disasters helps us get through it and past it. Mark Black deals with coastal restoration right up here. It's the most interesting man in Terrebonne Parish right there. Hillary Domingue, our new Quality of Life Director. Very excited about this recent position assignment. Scotty Dryden, who's here for Public Works. He's Operations Manager. Kelly Varnado with Housing Human Services back there. We have Candace Malden, who is our CFO. It's a lady with a checkbook. Joe Harris is in charge of juvenile detention right up here. And Leilani Adams, who is my chief of staff back there. So I want to thank them for coming and having a conversation. So I always start this thing the same way, like a nice, pretty presentation that we go through. Or we could jump right into some questions and then come back to that. Or just have questions, not talk about that at all. But I do like talking about some of the cool and exciting things we have going on in the parish, which is why I bring this. So it's up to the crowd. What y'all want to do? Questions and answers, presentation. Now, as I go through presentation, I'll say this before you give your answer. You can ask questions at any time, on any slide, and I'm not leaving here till every question is either answered or we have it together. We have the pieces of paper in the back that we brought. We can write stuff down on to go get an answer if you need it, if we can't come up with it tonight. But in lieu of, you can ask a question at any time, and I'll stay here until we're done. What's that? You want to see the movie? Okay. All right, everybody got your ticket, your popcorn? No, Joe. So for the last ones that came here, it was recovery, resiliency, and quality of life. And we've changed that to be revitalization. We feel like that's a better topic. And so for those that didn't see the first one, we're going to give some updates on what the first one had. But we're going to be doing this every year at this time frame. We're going to be in this gym, in this May time frame. And that way you better set your clock to it that we'll be coming back. And if any time you have questions or need something, you're welcome to call our office, call our departments. There's a common misconception that you got to go through a council member to get to our departments. That council member is calling those departments also, right? And you're welcome to call council members. You can call them all day long, do whatever you want to do. But if you call the department head, call that department. And in a lot of cases, you're not having to rely on somebody remembering everybody. They got to call those people back. But they do help and they do try to get involved. But you could definitely call these departments and the departments that aren't here at any time to resolve issues. And I tell people all the time, you send me a picture, an address, a phone number, I'm going to get it to the person. And more times than not, it'll get fixed before you and I could even sit down because I'm usually booking 3 weeks out. Versus if I got it to them, a lot of times the issue's going to be fixed before we'd even sit down and talk about it. So that's giving our team the opportunity to be successful. So we'll jump into our first slide. So again, we'll cover recovery, resiliency, revitalization. We're still talking post-Ida rebuilding projects here, almost 4 years after the storm. We have our Air Base Fire Station, which is on the east side. That's been awarded and anticipated completion in February of 26. The Civic Center, which was had the temporary roof of it, and the power plant were damaged during Francine. So we're hoping to have that completion in June of 25. We've had some weather delays, of course, related to the roof, but it looks very nice, new-looking roof on that thing as you pass it. And still doing some stuff on the inside. We have one set of bleachers I think we still have to replace. And then we're going to look at getting the other ones replaced at some point. We're looking for the funding for that. The Municipal Auditorium, if you hadn't been in that building, you need to go check it out. It looks amazing. New lights, new ceilings, great place to rent that if you're looking to have an event. And I'll talk a little bit about events and rentals and that kind of stuff later. And the Buquet Bridge, bid's been awarded. It's a 2-year project. We're expecting that to finish mid to late 2026. Basically everything but the frame is being replaced. So when people talk about, could they put a replacement bridge, a temporary bridge would have taken just as long to work on as the permanent bridge. And I know maybe this doesn't affect you guys in this area, but if you do go down to Bayou, we've had that canal. It's had a lot of issues. We had a pontoon bridge get hit. We have the Butte Bridge that is out from Ida, and that was boats hitting it and roof getting torn off and all the electricals getting damaged. And then the Combine Bridge had some gear issues that hopefully we have them fixed in a little while. So we've had a lot of bridge issues on that bayou, but we are working to resolve them. And one of the things, let me see the next slide real quick. I just want to check something. Yeah, so I'll kind of talk a little bit about that with this. So when I talk about the power plant, you may not be on Houma City Power. You may wonder why the power plant's important to you, but it runs the water plant, the hospital, and the airport. And those three things are important to all of us. And so that's why I think it's important to share where we are. That project, we had $65 million worth of insurance as a parish. This project alone is $170 million. That's why as a parish, we have to rely on FEMA. That's why the school systems had to rely on FEMA. And of course, the process that you see in the news on a regular basis is the issues that you deal with as you deal with FEMA. Of the $250 million, and if I'm wrong on this, Candace will correct me, that we are obligated, we've only collected half of that, and we're still looking to get another 105 plus a little more obligated with FEMA. So this far after the storm, we're still fighting this fight. With them, with everything you build, it's got to be built back. So if it's 80 megawatt before, it's 80 megawatt now. We're in a 200 megawatt pocket of energy from Morgan City to New Orleans, and this is 80 megawatts of that. Due to the fact that we have those facilities that I talked about running on these generators, FEMA said we're going to put some temporary generators in. We're going to pay for it. They're 20 megawatts. They get called upon. So even if that power plant was running, we don't produce power and use power. We produce power, put it into the system. Same thing with these temporary generators. And then we buy and sell that power back and forth like other commodities. So when you look at the fact that 20 megawatt temporary generators we have now holds load in a situation where there's a high load requirement, especially when it's real hot or real cold. And so that's there. If we were to get cut off we have one feeder from energy. If we get cut off from the world, the power plant will run everything in the city limits for sure. With the 20 megawatts, we have to make some decisions on what we can and can't run. But most importantly, the hospital, the water plant, and the airport. We also were going through system-wide line repairs from Ida, 847 repairs. We're anticipated that to be completed in June. You can flip to the next slide. And then we talk about the fact that we had 622 total for Ida, 386 of Francine, which there was some crossover there. So once we got through some Francine stuff, we were able to get back on the Ida stuff. And so we're still working through getting that resolved June of 15. And that's related, again, to power provided to the 14,000 customers that we have on city power with and around the city limits. So, and I'm jumping through this. Again, any questions, make sure you all raise your hand and we'll go from there. But just kind of giving you guys an idea where we're coming from versus where we're going. Okay. So CDBGR funding. So again, 4 years after the storm, we're just getting the process now to get some funding through HUD and the state related to resiliency and quality of life projects for low to moderate income residents, which we are about 43% low to moderate income in the parish. I say that because when we look at parish-wide projects, we can't apply low to moderate income to the entire parish because we're below the 50% threshold. And so HUD has allocated $117.6 million. Originally it was two applications, one for resiliency, one for economic development. They realized there was a lot of overlap, so they put all that together in one. They had those applications due November 30th. We were told we would hopefully get a approval for everything by the end of the year, but due to the complexity of the applications and the way that the money is run through with HUD and OCD at the state, we did have questions. So if we were going to do small business grants, there were different ways that have to be handled. So we've been kind of going back and forth on how we do those. So as of May of 14th, we have 22 applications that have been approved. 6 are currently in process, and the projects must be completed and the funds be spent by November of 2027. And this slide is the projects that we have officially been approved for. And you can see it's a little bit of everything everywhere. And this stuff is actually, if you go to our website, TPCG.org/recovery, you can see these applications and everything that's going on. And it's a little bit of everything everywhere. So it's everything from stormwater master plan, wastewater master plan, some pump station projects, skilling projects like the downtown steam engine, the aviation program at Fletcher, going through here, the revitalized career education at the old Fletcher building, working with the school board, small business grants. I don't think that was not on there yet. We're still working on that one. Small business program incubator. So you look at things that are related to businesses, things that are related to skilling, relocation of our garbage collection transfer facility, because where it's located at now could be affected by flooding, and we could have some issues where we're trying to get debris out after these storms. We have to make sure that that stuff's protected. When you look at like a wastewater plan and implementation, so we're doing a plan to study wastewater for the entire parish. It's going to be what would it look like for a neighborhood to come online, for a street to come online. And we have 2 treatment plants on the north and the south. So whatever we do on the north side, we're going to make sure the treatment plant on the north side could accept that. That's what that plan's about. And then there's an issue with Village East. So Village East, Laban Avenue area, Oakshire, and Broadmoor all have old clay piping. We're looking at a process to not have to pull that up, maybe kind of do some kind of repair in those areas. And again, it's got to meet that low to moderate income threshold in those areas. But that's where we're looking at a plan, and then where we can implement it doing that. And where we can't implement it with the CDBGR funding, we're going to have the opportunity to go after other funding opportunities that deal with water and sewage in those areas. Permanent locations for housing and human services. Right now, we're relying on a couple of facilities to deal with sheltering, where we could have more of a permanent facility to deal with that and storing supplies. Activate the bayou, we're looking at 3 or 4 different phases. That's everything from some boat launches to cleaning up and dredging and just really getting the waterways healthier and more active. Separate and apart from that, we have a project for this bayou right here that we're going through the permit process right now. So we're going to be doing some Francine cleanup. So there's some debris in this bayou and a couple other bayous that we're going to clean up as part of that process. Then we're going to come back and do kind of a slash dredge and snag and clear to get Bayou Terrebonne cleaned up all the way up to the line. Past that, we're also looking at some other projects to reintroduce some water into Bayou Terrebonne, made it from everywhere, from the water plant to some pumps that we deal with Bayou St. Louis. But we are looking to make the waterway more accessible, healthier, and better for drainage. So a lot of different kind of projects. Some of these we have to do studies, like on support the seafood industry. We got to do a study to understand what the need is. Every town hall or every community conversation we had related to the last, I would say probably 6 years, 8 years, maybe even a little bit longer than that. Every time it was brought up, we need to help our seafood industry. That's why you see stuff about the seafood industry on this list. So again, a lot of great things. A shot in the arm for our economy and for our community. A little late, but better late than never, that we better take some of this funding and help the residents and businesses in Terrebonne Parish. And it's very complicated. Every day it changes, and they'll send us something. We got to reply back saying, well, this is why we're doing this. This is what we're going to do with that. And then pushing to get all that approved. I know it's a lot, but it is a great opportunity. And I think if anybody's got any questions, yes. No, that is imposed from the people upstairs. So.
This project needs, is there a more detailed layout of these projects in terms of like, this project needs to have, it's at this state where, you know, you're doing the research and study or whatever, versus this one's at, you know, a different point. Like, this is very high level.
Yes.
But I think people are more interested in like.
So I'll tell you what we got coming. And
Okay.
I'm hoping once we get the rest of our projects approved, we have this. But we're going to have a public-facing portal that has the detail of all these projects. And I'll give you a good example. Like the community centers is broken up into many phases. The first phase is going to be do a study of what areas need community centers. And then hopefully we can implement 1, 2, or 3 community centers as part of that study, all to get that done by that 2027 time frame. But we're going to have a public-facing site that's got that. It's got the timelines on it that shows, you know, it's going through design, like all this stuff. If we're doing anything with any building, we have to do environmental compliance. We got to do, you know, that might take a month or 2. So we got to go through that. We're buying a building. We got to go through an appraisal process. So once all that's done, then we get to the point where we could buy a building, then it's going to be doing the construction and maintenance or whatever's got to happen with that. Versus if we're doing small business grants, which we're still working on the approval of that project, that's going to be what we write the program to be to meet the needs of our community, right? And that's where I feel like the rubber can meet the road to help make sure that the businesses that need that get that. And part of that process is to set them up working with South Central Planning and TITA to identify the largest pain they have in their company and to make sure that funding goes to fix that major pain. Because if it doesn't do that, then you're just throwing money away in my book.
Yep.
So, but yeah, we'll have more coming out. And again, if you go to tpcg.org/recovery or on our new website, which I'll talk about in a little bit, every one of these applications, the areas they serve, all that data is on the website as of probably a year or two ago. Like when we started rolling this out and sending stuff into the state, that's all been on that website. All these applications are all on that website, just broken out.
Yep.
Once we get the website up, you better see everything in one spot.
Okay.
So, any other questions on this? Okay. So the next thing I like to talk about is capital outlay projects. Of course, is the ebb and flow of the state budget and whether or not we have a surplus or a deficit. With some of the things they were looking to do with the constitutional amendments to look at what that would mean for if we have a deficit or a surplus. They're still working through all that at the legislative level this year. But I can tell you, if you look at my goal is probably the first 3 or 4 projects on the left-hand side at the top are the closest projects to get finished. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get some projects finished. We have money and engineering spread out through some other projects. And some of these are ideas that we threw up to see if it even stuck, right? But when we look at this is what we're looking at as far as, so we put together a list of projects that need funding in the parish. That project, it lists somewhere around 295 projects. The requirement of funding is around $770 million, which we're still looking for over $500 million worth of money for. And it's every kind of project you can imagine. Drainage, roads, bridges. You just go down the line, pumps. It's everything you can imagine. And this conversation of saying this, identifying what's there, what's priority based on how long it's been an issue, how many residents does it affect. All those things coming together and saying, okay, these have a great opportunity for maybe getting some state funding, and that's how they end up on this list. So we go through a process, and our Public Works Department is going to list the projects they feel are important. When we go into the budget process starting here in June, July, that's going to get moved to potential funding opportunity. But it's all through wish list items that are coming through issues that we work through every day with our residents, calls we get, and issues we see, and and things that happen due to age, maintenance or lack of maintenance. All this gets put together into projects, and that's how we ended up here. So, for example, like the West Alma drainage improvements, that's going to be phase 3 of 3 phases. We're saying, we got that one left. Can you maybe put a little bit of money in for there versus the one above or below it might be $10 million projects, right? So if we could squeeze something in that says it's $1 million to finish here, something that seems more of an opportunity to get the funding, that's what we're working through. And that's, again, this is only a few projects, and these are ones that we sent to the state and everything else. Some projects we'll put into 3 or 4 different funding opportunities and see what sticks. But that's the list that we're working off of right now. And it changes every year. Something might get added or removed, or project's completed, we can move something else up. So we submit letters for all these projects. Every project has different levels of funding opportunities. Some of this requires a match. Sometimes we provide the match, but sometimes other agencies provide the match. So these are different dollar amounts and different levels. Every one of these projects is at some different level of funding. And I can tell you everything here down got added this year, and you never get funded your first year. So they get added the first year to hopefully get maybe some funding, some level of funding, at least maybe engineering in the second year. And everything else has been in process, could have been in process for the last 16 years, 8 years, right? Right. Right. So, and again, there's a D19 pump station that we have fully funded that we're working on starting work for. This is another pump station, right? So if you look at, I want to say, and Scotty, correct me if I'm wrong, 72 pump stations. Does that sound right in that area? Yeah. So when you say D18, that's 18 of 72-ish. So But yeah, so I mean, and again, some of this stuff's being funded in other ways. So we're looking at what's the best opportunity to get funded. Some of this is working with our representatives for what their needs they have, working with council members on what needs they have, and coming to something at the end of the day that says, and I'll give you a good example, that Brady Road Bridge. Maintenance of the levee is dependent on that bridge because right now we have to use a barge to get dirt across, right? Well, all we have is a green single swing bridge. And we gotta stop boat traffic, put a barge out, drop the flaps, and run trucks across it. For the project we did right before Francine, we had 6,700 trucks go across that barge. So we need to put something that's a little more stable with a bridge, and that we're gonna build a bridge almost where that barge is. We're gonna put it there. But that project, we got a little bit of funding left, right? So some of these projects have been in the works. I think that Brady Root Bridge, any idea time frame how long that's been in the works for? Yeah. So some of this stuff is we're still trying to get some of the funding. And look, any year that the state has a deficit, this is all off. It's almost like when you're betting and you turn your bet on and off. When there's no money in the till, we got to turn the bet off, right? So again, this is the state working through its funding, and this is us working with our delegation, working with the state to say, hey, this is something that's important and urgent.
I laid it out was the Valhalla extension,
Right.
Savannah Road to Highway 90. I did the first before it even started. The original Valhalla, St. Charles, all that. I designed all that. That was supposed to be funded from the state a long time ago as a hurricane evacuation. Is that still in that process? Because I know one time we was messing with.
I mean, that right there is a $50 million project.
Yeah. But we was going to pay for 2 lanes of it,
Right.
and we had to right away for 250 feet, if I remember correctly,
Right.
to build 4 lanes out to make it emergency evacuation to Highway 90. That's why I was wondering, is it still, the right-of-ways and all that was being established back then, that's still in process?
So I know we've had some conversations working with the landowners and some other things. I've been in one meeting, and that meeting was probably a year ago. Right now they're doing a study because the first part of that off of Savannah runs right through some wetlands. So that's going to be that's the thing the biggest hurdle we got to clear. But after that, it's going to be funding. So say the state, this is capital outlay that is going to come from the state, but we got to find $50 million. Right. But to come back to your right-of-way conversation, I knew of 2 or 3 different possible routes still. That it seemed like that wasn't.
I know when I first laid it out, I was going down the right-of-way, the power line right-of-way. Because going across the subdivision on Savannah Road was a pain. I know before, what's the name, had died, going through dividing his property up was a little pain also. But Tommy Parkhill, yeah. But I know I had a right-of-way all the way down to the end, even to the on-ramps. And that was the other problem. The on-ramps at 311 versus bringing another on-ramp onto it was another issue.
The last plan I saw it goes underneath and comes out by K&B. Well, yeah, K&B and that Rouse's entrance, and they put a roundabout right there.
Okay. Because at one time I took it all the way to Tiger Drive and was getting LaFouche in it. We were trying to get 2 parishes to go to the state and say, hey, look, if we each put up monies, you're going to make this a 4-lane. And that was the last conversation. That's way before your time. That's like two, maybe 3 parish presidents ago.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm old. Yeah, I laid that out a long time ago.
Well, the plan I saw was 2 or 3 options to get it
was in my office.
Savannah.
I had a bunch of roads and bridges, and it was adopted by the parish a long time ago of all the future projects. And some of them got developed and some of them died out over time.
Right.
But I just saw that one. I just brought back old memories. That's why I was just curious.
Old memories, huh?
Still going.
There's a few old memories on this board, yeah.
Evidently
Yeah.
It's been that a long time.
Yeah, I've been to D18 a few times. I've been to a few of them. Industrial pump station. That's the one over there by we put that levee tide into.
Thomasy, and it's actually going to be off to the side of the one that is there now. Yep.
I had designed the bump in the road. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any other questions on this? We'll move forward. So, I'd like to talk about. I said I don't like to. I feel like I have to talk about a housing crisis. We have over 800 housing unit shortage from our numbers. This is stuff that we put together with Housing and Human Services. With that, I've been trying to work with the Housing Authority and HUD to get some level of a plan as it relates to Bayou Towers and Senator Circle, because that's about 550 of the need. Outside of that, we have a project with Parkwood Place that we're looking at 90 units. West Tunnel Law, 40 units. Imperial Terrace, which is going through some planning and zoning stuff right now with the Planning Commission at 120 units. And Bon Terre, which is downtown, 55 units. Past that, we're working with South Street Planning and Development on a scratch program. They're looking at making some erector set type homes that is faster to get built and put up and understand more cost effective. But this just shows kind of what we're looking at trying to do. You know, you're probably looking at, I think it's about 300 units here of a housing issue that we can look to address, but still have a shortage. And I just like to make people aware of, you know, people that would love to have an insurance problem right here are still trying to get housing and really get a place to live this, 4 years after the storm. And again, still trying to have an understanding of all the people that are housed at those two facilities who actually needs housing. And we can't get that answer. And we've been working on that for over a year now. So at least I've been working on it for a year. I know our team's probably been working on it longer than that. Not probably, but has been working on it longer than that. So I'm just trying to be the hammer for them to make sure we get this moving forward. So any questions on this before we? That's what I'm talking about. I can't get a straight answer. I was told that the first step was demoing it. So I said, okay, well, let's get it demoed. So we sent our building inspectors, deemed it unlivable. FEMA didn't accept that. We put it in the condemnation hearing. The Housing Authority was supposed to support us on that. And then they changed tune on that, which happens every time after I leave a meeting. We talk about one thing and they end up doing something else or saying something else. So at this point, my conversation's been, you had 500 or so residents in those two facilities. How many do we need to put housing for now? And I can't get that answer. I've been trying to get that answer for over a year. So at this point, I understand they have about $28 million that they've collected on insurance funds. And, here we are almost 4 years down the road and there's no plan. There's no idea of what's going to go where, who needs it, all that stuff. So that's why I've been actually leaning on FEMA to get more information directly from FEMA instead of trying to go through the Housing Authority, because I'm not getting my questions answered and just trying to understand. And I keep asking the question, when can we tear it down? And then they start having a conversation that somebody wants to buy it and redo it. And, again, if we would have, FEMA told us if we went through the condemnation process and tore it down, they might not get funding, which is a whole nother problem. And I've actually been to DC and sat down with FEMA and said, you got to fix this, right? If you look at the buildings, there's one across from the tower that belongs to the DA, and then there's the old Christmas building. They're telling them the same thing. You can't tear that building down. But we tore down a fire station, and we're going to be building a new one, and we're getting all our money for that. So it depends on who you talk to. But I can just tell you, I've been asking for a plan for over a year now, and they couldn't tell me if they got 15 people that need housing, 100 people need housing, or 500 people need housing that used to live in one of those two locations. So my goal is to get housing and get a plan, and that's all I want, and I can't get that. So, any other questions? All right. So I've talked a lot about, we battled through some destruction. We're doing some rebuilding. We have some issues we're trying to work through in housing. And I like to talk about some of the good things we have going on with economic development. And one of those things is an EDA waterline grant. It's a grant we received that is going to put utilities, Martin Luther King, West Side Boulevard. So if you get in that area, catty corner, right there by Performance Power Sports, there's not a whole lot of development especially on the other side, due to the fact that they don't have utilities. So with the Terrebonne General project coming online, of what they're going to be building there, along with working with EDA and TITA, we're going to get that funded. So that gives us an opportunity for some development. And that's something I think is awesome, because development is building and jobs and sales tax and all the things that we need. One of the things that, I like to share also is that when you look at, where we're at as a parish and what you look at as far as sales tax collections, we have had probably 12 of the last 15 a decline. We've had some steady and some increase. But we're trying to figure out what the new normal is on our sales tax collections. If you go back 10 years, I remember when my other tech company, from 2014 to 2017 was a horrible economic downturn with oil and gas. So I like to look back to that time period, which would have been, 10, 11 years ago, to see where that is versus the false economies we've had with the BP oil spill, COVID, and Ida. So every time it did this with these false economies, but if you look at the last 10 years, we're actually on track to end up right where we are right now. So with the drops and raises and the steady incline, what I've seen since 2014, now it's trying to figure out what that new normal is going to be. And is that going to incline? Is it going to stay steady? Is it going to drop? So I feel like we leveled out. We had a last couple good months or decent months at least. So as we look through that and sales tax, that's what we're funded off of. Everything we do inside the parish is related to a property tax or a sales tax, right? And then some situations where we have utilities and we get revenue in, but the majority of it's going to be in those two categories. So we're seeing what seems to be some good things. Tom is going to tell a little bit on that. But again, stuff like the EDA waterline grant. We bought the Whitney Bank building at the end of last year. That's going to put a lot of people in that building, more foot traffic. We have studies that show, for dollars that invest, you get a return on that investment with a walkable area. And what we have going on with some of the things downtown is going to make a difference with that and bring more revenue to our parish. Fletcher built a workforce building and a couple other building and projects that they're working on. Cynthia, Louisiana, which is something we're kind of waiting to see. They were kind of like a little trial thing to take lilies and convert it to everything from potted plant holders to OSB board. And so with that, get some investments to better take the lilies and take something that's such a nuisance in our area and turn it into a potential product. And so they bought some property in Gibson. They're trying to work on getting that built out. We have a health unit, which we're working on not calling it a health unit anymore because there's a negative connotation. Something along the lines, maybe the health unit at the community outreach Terrebonne Parish facility. But that's bids are coming in and they're actually almost finished here. And we're going to be going construction on that health unit next to the health unit we have on Tunnel Boulevard. And then American Legion, we should have all of our quotes obtained to redo that building and going to make that a veterans center for resources. So if you're any kind of veteran, we have 2 or 3 or 4 different veteran organizations for them organizations to originate in that building and have a place for veterans to go work out of and help our veterans out. So some cool things going on. And again, with the CDBGR funding and those projects kicking off, a lot of positive opportunity in Terrebonne Parish. Any questions? No, that's the one. So that's the VFW. We're redoing that related to IDA, and we're actually probably going to put our buildings group in that building. This is the one on Legion, right by American Legion. The Legion School used to be the pool. And they have used to be a tennis courts that we're going to convert to pickleball. Let them kind of run it. It's that building right there on the corner of that street and LSU Ag building used to be. What's that other street? You don't remember? No. Coming from 90 from Nolans Boulevard. Oh well. Yeah, right there though. Yeah. All right. So permits. I just like to give some numbers when it comes to this. We were right around 3,000-ish before IDA. Jumped to almost 8,000. You could see we dropped, and with Francine, we're kind of coming back up. So we're right around, somewhere in the 5,500 area of permits. Permits used to take 2 to 3 days. Now they're 2 to 3 weeks. We're still working on ways to make sure that it's efficient, that we have the right processes in place. When the Restore LA comes into play, bringing in resources that help with those Restore LA permits. But just letting people know that we just dealing with, pretty much the same staff we had right at IDA, which we just added a couple people. That's the same staff that's been working on getting that number down, and it's kind of building back up a little bit. So be patient and let us know the issues that you deal with. We just signed a deal with South Central Planning to help us in the immediate needs, or if we have somebody that is on vacation or sick or person retires, that we can address it till we get those positions filled and that we have less of an impact on permits being processed. All right. So insurance reform. We definitely have a big battle going on at the state level right now. The legislative group passed 26 bills last year and had no effect on insurance rates. When you look at the fact that we battle in 2 battles, one in homeowners, the other in flood, insurance commissioner's been working to try to get, again, the 24 session, 25 session. They got more bills they're still working through. Recognition for work we did. So after Francine, we brought the insurance commissioner down, had him stand on the levee in Montague where the water was right up to it, and said, and this is the fact that we actually had proven from the state, the $1 to $1.2 billion that we spend on our levee system, for Francine alone, it saved FEMA $1.7 billion. And that's the conversation of saying we should have credit. The stuff that wasn't damaged with Francine, because of the resiliency, the hardening that we did after IDA, that we get credit for all that. So the insurance commissioner has been talking about getting reinsurers down here, because he said it made a difference for him to see and feel and touch it. them to see, feel, and touch, and hopefully get more opportunity of a credit. So between that, what's going on at the legislative level, that's what's really happening from a homeowner's perspective. But like we're provide data, and it's something I got to give credit to our team. You know, it may seem like a frustration to give a permit for a roof, but then when FEMA comes to us and says, show me how many roofs have been replaced in the last 5 years, and we can say that 80% of our roofs have been replaced in the last 5 years, that's data that can be used for discounts. And that's why we do the permits. I know some parishes don't even do that. Whenever it comes to us and I go, hey, how do we do this or do we do that? 9.95% of the time, 9.9 times out of 10, 95% of the time, we're already doing the things that FEMA's coming to us and say, do you have this data? Do you have this data? And that's why we collect that information. It's for us to pass the information on and help us whenever we can get any kind of discount or any kind of assistance. On a floods perspective, we've been working to give data to FEMA. So FEMA's responsibility is to collect data every 10 years. The latest data they have is 2018. So when you look at the fact that our flood maps are laid out based on data they've had since 2018, that's also related to proximity to water, right? We have a bayou right here. In every other area in the country, when you're close to water, you're low, versus when we're close to water, we're high, because that's always the highest point. Trying to get FEMA to understand that. So some of the conversations I had with both our Congress and with FEMA is they should probably be doing this every 5 years. We've done 2 to 3 times the work in the last 5 than we did the previous 10. So they ought to be checking it more often. Having a conversation with Higgins and him trying to convince Trump that they should go to LIDAR, and then you start seeing all the changes that are happening. And I feel like emails every day on the bills that are out there for FEMA to change and do things differently with the goal of getting the money to the state and the state getting the money to the parish. But also, try to get a executive order on getting rid of risk rating 2.0. Our rates would have went down, but the million other people on the other side, their rates would have went up. So it's the government trying to figure out that balance. And working, like they were working on some bills that said, if you had flood insurance that was high, maybe you get offset on some tax incentives and tax credits. Conversations about disaster insurance, a lot of things are on the table. And we're seeing things come through again on a regular basis for opportunities. I'll tell you, in my opinion, I'm not afraid for them to blow up FEMA because it hadn't been working anyway. All right, here we are 4 years down the road, still trying to collect some funds related to damages and other projects. And so, definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So as we work through this process and have these conversations, I'm definitely sharing our horror stories. And every time we have a phone call, it's about, like, I'll be saying something and the regional director of FEMA is like, that's the same thing I've been saying. I was like, well, send me the rest of your list so we could try to get some of this stuff changed and done a little bit different. But that's what we have going on from an insurance perspective. Any questions on that? Anything? Nope. Okay. So accountability. So in 2024 alone, us and residents demolished 191 properties. The problem is there's still another 400 to 500 on that list. But we changed an ordinance that allowed us to make that process run faster. We were able to serve differently. We made things stackable. So if you have a property that has multiple issues, it stacks. If you have a bunch of properties with issues, it stacks. And so that's what we're doing to hold property owners accountable, along with some other things with Downtown Restoration District, doing some things with blight and basically having properties be registered. But when we had originally $1 million, I think we're below or around the $200,000 area in that funds. So with that, that means we go through, we demolish, a resident doesn't get charged, we just move on to the next property. We're looking to find some other funding to do that, to assist people. Like I talked about, we still have 400 to 500 properties that still are considered some level of blight that needs to be condemned. But we are working through the list. And again, we finally reached a point that we were working on stuff and getting it processed more than it was coming in. At one point, it was coming in faster than we could process it. So it used to be the council did 25 a quarter, now it's 50. We're also supplementing with South Central Planning for them to process some condemnations and also go through some demo processes. And again, hopefully we got some funding here soon. We better do some more of that with. But that's what we've been working on to try to get rid of blight, get rid of that broken window syndrome. We revised the food truck ordinance. So we had an ordinance. We tried to get it to where we could actually have food trucks everywhere, but it needed to be a conversation of just making sure that we hold food vendors accountable. So we changed the ordinance for the entire parish of how that get registered and how those get put on properties. And so as we do that and we look at, we're going to hold those mobile vendors accountable more to look at the possible expansion of doing that in places like downtown. And that's something that's our ultimate goal. And again, it goes back to that walkability and foot traffic that we can have downtown, but be managed, not have food trucks on the sidewalks. If your property's zoned for it, you can put food trucks on your property and have it where it's very organized and managed. And if somebody fails something with Department of Health, we pull that permit, right? So they have to meet their things they have to do.
That
So we
and change it
revisited it to make sure,
to put it in a
and
separate.
she's asking about food trucks. So what we did, the first phase was, let's make sure that the way we manage food trucks is better, parish-wide.
Okay.
So we did that first. And now we're going to look at coming back. And for a few examples, like Chamber just started doing like a food truck Fridays. We're looking at doing some food truck events just to show people that that's what people want, right?
Right. In the
and then-
last council meeting that we went to, I know they had voted down the food trucks in the downtown
Right.
area.
That was
from
all
a
part of
certain-
one ordinance.
But did you revisit that? Are they going to allow?
Well, we
the food
revisited it from the
trucks?
fact of we're changing the way we manage food trucks parish-wide.
Oh, just parish-wide.
First
Okay.
step, right?
First step.
So it's instead of eating elephant, the whole thing we're going
Okay.
to do, let's change the way we manage food trucks. Let's show some accountability there that we're just not going to let. One of the problems that people had to complain with was on the east side. They had a food truck that became a permanent location. With the way the Board of Health ran things before, that was allowed. Now that's not allowed.
Okay.
So for one of the things that we got to make sure we prove that can be enforced is that if you have a food truck, it's got to leave where it is every day. Right? It can't stay there. So as we have the new ordinances written, the way we manage those food trucks, if they don't move every day, we can reject that permit. Right? So with that being in place, there's more accountability that can be had with the mobile food vendors that allows us to maybe expand in other areas once we show that accountability. And I can understand both sides of it, right? I know there's concerns with businesses and then putting them out of business.
Well, I was just,
So-
and one of the council members brung up a good idea. I don't remember who it was, but they did say, maybe it was Clayton, that the time frame.
Yeah.
Like after hours where downtown is more lively at night, that's perfect opportunity for them. So I didn't know if that
I
was
can tell you what's
revisited so we
frustrating
can
from
see.
an administration perspective is that we sat down with restaurants and we had everybody in one meeting and we had all these conversations. We took that whole thing and sent it to the council. Do y'all have any questions? Are there any issues? Do we need to work on anything? And then you see what happens at a council meeting, right?
Yeah,
So
I saw.
at what point that our team is putting all the information together, doing the research, having the conversations, having the meetings, to not get any feedback and then have that happen. So we said, okay, we're going to just do it on our own. Let's change the way we manage food trucks parish-wide. Let's do that first.
Okay.
Got that passed, and then it's going to be, what's that next step look like? And again, showing that maybe we have a little, right now you could have food trucks if you have a special event permit or for like parades, right? So in those two situations, so the conversation becomes, well, maybe if we do live after 5, let's get some food trucks out there and let's see how much of a buzz it creates.
Because I was definitely looking for a taco truck, girls' night out on the bus.
Right,
It was that time. I was looking for a taco truck, couldn't find one.
right. I understand. Everybody like a good taco truck.
I think the biggest thing about the food truck thing, and I'm not against that part at all, but you're sticking brick guys, they put a lot of dollars, brick and mortar, yeah, and especially the insurance part of it. When the food truck stops on the side of the road and he parks, if someone falls and breaks an ankle right there, who's liable?
So that's where I talk about. So when we talk about, there's 2 permits now. One is that for every mobile vehicle you have to have a permit to operate. And that's us making sure you have what you need with the Board of Health. That's making sure you have an occupational license, that you're doing your sales tax stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second permit, which is no charge, is an approval to be where you're supposed to, where you're saying you could be. So if a food truck wanted to come set up right out here, they'd have to get permission from this rec district to set a food truck up out there, right? So that's the second permit. So as far as the conversation of food truck setting up on the side of the road, that's not allowed, right? And that's something that if is reported, they can lose their parish-wide license to operate a food truck by not operating where they're supposed to be. So then you look at the fact that you got to leave every day. They have to have a commissary. You got all these rules that the Board of Health meets. So when I come back to the fact of saying the thing I was trying to do downtown is if a property is zoned for it, commercial, that's when you have the opportunity to have a food truck, but you have to have the permission of the property owner if you don't own the property. And you have to have a commissary, and you have to leave every day, right? So when you look at all those things, I know of 2 or 3 food trucks that became brick and mortar restaurants. I look at food trucks as a incubator for an idea that somebody maybe can't afford. Maybe they've tried to get a loan, maybe they've tried all this stuff, and they say, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna deliver food, or I'm gonna have you bring, come here and get food. Again, when I see 2 success stories, when I see the studies that show time after time, that I have a study that shows, and this was part of the stuff that I gave the council once it failed, because like I said, I had the meetings, I gave all the data, gave everything to the council. They didn't have something, they didn't ask for it, it didn't pass. But I have a study that shows for every food truck, you get more restaurants. So again, every person every dollar you invest downtown and make it walkable and do stuff where people come walking there, you get a 10-fold return on that investment. So show me something that says it doesn't work, but based on everything I have, it's always beneficial for everybody, even the restaurants. Because what happens? They go down, restaurants busy, they go to food truck's busy, go to restaurant. And you start seeing where you get cross-pollination because you got people that are coming downtown to see a food truck that didn't realize, ooh, that's cool, I never knew that restaurant was there. Or, man, I just think it's a scarcity mindset that I want to get rid of, that we could all work together and grow together. Rising tide raises all ships, And I think if it's managed right, there shouldn't be a problem. And this is the conversation I've had. I could put a container down there now and do the same thing. The difference is that these have wheels, right? So if I rent a property and put a container on, I can open a container restaurant tomorrow with the current ordinance. So at the end of the day, what are we actually fighting here is my question. But we're going to go through. We're going to show people how much of a benefit it is. We're going to work on getting downtown more walkable. And we're going to try to get people downtown more often, because it's a proven fact. The healthier that downtown is, the healthier parish is, So, all right. Some other ordinances. We had a panhandling and vagrancy ordinance that was actually unconstitutional. I referenced the banana box condos at the bottom of the twin spans on the east side, where they had some banana boxes and people living behind them. Prior to this ordinance, if the property owner didn't say they were trespassing, there was nothing we can do. Now we have an anti-camping ordinance that says you can't camp here. That gives our law enforcement the opportunity, not only in the city, but parish-wide, to say you can't camp here and you got to go. So, and look, at the same time, I'm working with groups to make sure we address behavioral and mental health and addiction, which I believe are causing a lot of issues with people, with crime, with economic disadvantage, with homelessness. So not only are we working on trying to keep things nice, neat, and tidy, we're also trying to make sure that we have all the resources in place, that everybody's familiar with those resources. At the end of the day, the battle we're going to fight is the people that don't need help, don't want help. And that's the problem that goes on around the country. It's either Seattle or Portland spent $1 billion to address their homeless issue and didn't make a dent. New Orleans spent $250 million. They say it's just as bad now as it ever was. So it's trying to do things differently in our region, which I feel like it should be addressed from a regional perspective, but also given an opportunity for our law enforcement officials to have a little more of an opportunity of success without fighting this battle with both hands tied behind their back. We passed the recreation accountability, and I'm waiting for that to get implemented. There was a there was a recreation advisory board that consisted of all the recreation districts. That really didn't have any teeth, so we got it passed with more teeth. We're waiting on a council appointment to get that thing kicked off. I think we've been waiting on that for 5 or 6 months now. So as soon as the council can get that appointed, we can have more accountability when it comes to recreation, have a master plan, and have things that all the rec districts work together. Where if one, for example, we have 3 lunches that I'm aware of in recreation districts for seniors. And we have 11 rec districts. So why don't we have 11 places that seniors can go have lunches? So it's the rec districts working with the council on aging to make stuff like that happen. We have rec districts that don't have pools. We have rec districts that don't. All the rec districts all don't have the same stuff. How do we get our rec districts to work together and come together and share ideas and share resources and give people a better opportunity to quality of life no matter where you live and no matter how old you are? And so that's where that's coming from. And we instituted a borrow pit pond ordinance. We had a situation where somebody dug a pond, and that pond started flooding the neighborhood, and we have anything in place that could address that. Now we do. And we put it into the borrow pit ordinance, which we didn't have either. And that's, again, as we see issues, as we think things need to be adjusted, we're going to throw it out and see what sticks. Of the 8 things I tried to pass last year, 7 of them did, with the 8th one being the food trucks. Everything else got passed, and it was all stuff that improved ordinances and addressed complaints and addressed issues that our team members said they couldn't get something done, couldn't enforce something, couldn't be successful in their jobs. So we did what we could to get some stuff implemented to change that. Any questions on this? All right. So quality of life. So we rebranded TPR to Quality of Life. We have a new Quality of Life director, Mr. Hillary Domain. And that is, we have athletics and leisure, which is like your football, baseball. We have community enrichment, which used to be Main Street. We use the concept of what was done kind of with the Main Street program and how that works. And we're looking to implement that around the parish. And then we had venues and destinations. You used to have to call one person for the municipal and another person for the baseball field or civic center. All those facilities in one place. And in the process of dealing with some safety issues that were addressed, we took over these parks that were in recreation. We were doing some level of maintenance. But one of the things I really like to talk about is that first one, which is the Air Base Softball Complex, which I like to call Bayou Country Sports Park on the east side. I think the east side residents need the same opportunities the west side residents do with the sports park. But again, a lot of these parks, or I say a lot, but some of these parks had some safety issues, things that put a liability in the parish, things that people could get hurt on or worse. So we took over these parks, and we're working on making sure that they are all safe, that they're usable, and that the residents in these areas have something they can be proud of. And we'll continue to move through with quality of life and making sure, again, go back to that conversation of quality of life, no matter where you live, no matter how old you are, the best opportunity for quality of life inside the parish. And what that relates to community outreach. Any questions on this? And we're getting to the end. I know it's a lot, but we've been doing a lot, so I like to share. So we just launched here, actually about a month now, our new design website. Probably haven't been updated in a while here. Our team did a great job. These 2 guys right here, we call them the Drone Bros. So when you see videos on our Facebook page and it's a drone flight, these are 2 guys that are doing it, sharing the work we've been doing with vegetation, but making it easier to use, easier to find things. If you go on the home page, there's 6 buttons at the top. Those 6 buttons are the most visited places on the web page. We put them where you could quickly get to them. The opportunity to pay bills, request permits, council district map information, job openings, agendas, all that information is easily accessible on the website. Because we did a new site and some stuff still tied with Google, sometimes you'll get a 404 error. If you go to tpcg.org directly, you won't have that problem. But if you, sometimes it just takes time to upload that. But, we're working on making, at some point, my goal, as we combine work order systems and some other things, is better click on a map on your phone, report an issue, get a status on an issue. That's where we're going at some point, and we're working through that. So we've upgraded our email system, our phone system, and now our website. We're still working on our work order systems and our accounting systems to get real-time information to make decisions faster. So check it out. Love your feedback, and I'm really proud of our team. And look, everybody here, especially getting this website, that was a pet project of mine that said, we got to fix this. That's one of the first things I wanted to do when I got in. But it takes a little time, and we're up and live. So go ahead, next one. So bayous, I talked a little bit about the bayou outside here. We have what we call a clear, snag, and dredge. Bayou Terrebonne, Bayou Black, vegetation and debris removal with Francine. Then we have the statewide flood control funding, again, that we're adjusting. So we've been having that money since about 2012, but it was to dredge Bayou Terrebonne to -6. That's not enough funding to do that, so we're changing the scope. That's why we're having to go through the permit process again to get the major tree stuff out and do maybe a 2-foot dredge in some areas that we clean out that bayou, make it healthier, get more water introduced into Bayou Terrebonne. Derelict vessel removal. So we have, in just 4 bayous, 232 derelict vessels. That's not all the rest of the waterways and other bayous. But right now we're working on using $1 million to get into Bayou Grand Caya, the biggest concentration of vessels, the biggest one shot that we go in there and grab and get those vessels out. And we've worked to make sure that our derelict vessel program is, as you report something now, the owner has 30 days to get it out. If they don't get it out, we get it out. But our goal is to make sure that the residents do, but getting vessel numbers and all those kind of things As we're seeing in nuisance and abatement, as we're seeing in this, as we notify people and people see that we're tearing stuff down and we're serious about it, things are definitely starting to get picked up and move around a little bit on their own without us having to get involved and pay for it. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to us to make sure, it's a balance of saying, well, we're using taxpayer funds to get rid of some people's property, but we have a responsibility to address blight, which affects property values, right? So it is a balance of trying to do both of those things that we try to do as fair as possible. And then we did a Bayou Revival campaign that included some trash mitigation stuff to try to stop the trash from getting to Bayou Terrebonne, especially during Mardi Gras. We did some things along the mall and some berms at certain bridges. And I want to say we removed 33 bags of trash. Just little clicks out here. They removed 33 bags of trash from Bayou Terrebonne and stopped it from getting into Intercoastal. And so those are some of the things we're doing to make sure that we try to keep trash on our bayous. But doing this Bayou Revival campaign, putting signs. I'm working on trying to get community trash pickup programs. I can't think of the name right now. But working with the DA to get that implemented. And I believe if you litter, you should go pick it up. That's just how I feel about it. So, but that's what we're working on. It's crazy. Actually, I don't think I shared this with some of my team. I was with the parish presidents in Baton Rouge might have been Wednesday last week, and Billy Nungesser gave a presentation, and he's loved the boot. And they had a video. They put up a camera at a bridge, and I could not get over the people that were just freaking taking trash, throwing it off the bridge, and doing this, and just like, and every one of those people got a ticket. And it's one of the things we do. Like when we see the trash is heavy in an area, we go put a camera up, and we try to figure out who's doing it, and we put it on them and fine them and everything else. So we don't tolerate it. And again, the things that you guys see we can do better. Sometimes the state tractors are going to cut the grass and tear the trash up. We're working to do that, but we also hear that the inmates prefer to go pick it up that way because when the tall grass, they weren't going to get bit by a snake. So at the end of the day, our goal is to get it picked up and address it as it happens. Going into the next slide, which is going to be a little bit about cutting grass. And I'm getting Noah to correct me. We had 4, now we have 5 CEAs with DOTD to cut state grass, right? Yes. So what we're looking to do, the same people that cut grass are the same people that fix potholes. We're saying, let us help you. Let us take some of that, especially the grass cutting part off. And the more we do that, they give us the funding for it. We can usually do it more cost effectively, but it also allows them to manage some of the projects they have. So the last project we took over is Martin Luther King. So the parish is going to be cutting that grass. Our conversation is working with the state to make sure that we can do more of that on our own and any opportunity that we can. I can tell you we have a quarterly meeting with DOTD that started with us kicking up some reflectors and stuff on the twin spans and some other stuff getting cut down related to Mardi Gras. And so we definitely have a working relationship. And when you look at the twin spans, there was an issue that when the Dageville Bridge closed that the lights were off. So we asked the local people a couple times, didn't get the response we wanted to, called up to Baton Rouge, lights got adjusted. Then we had a couple close calls coming down on the east side where people were trying to merge over. Called local DOTD, didn't happen. Called Baton Rouge, now we got it where it merges down to one lane to avoid some potential head-on collisions. So I do believe we have a great working conversation. Just recently I learned with the Dageville Bridge that that's going to be waiting 5 months on some cables that because of a federal requirement required to buy from 1 or 2 places, and those places have a 5-month lead time. And so I'm trying to work with our senators and DOTD and the governor to try to get some cables made locally and get that bridge back in action, right? And that's what we fight with when we deal with the fact that there's a federal requirement that requires DOTD at the state level to maybe do or not do something. And I'm working on making sure that our residents stay informed. For those that may or may not know, with the Burke Bridge, which is we're being told end of May is the time frame. If it pushes, it won't be much further than that. But that contractor is getting hit for $10,000 a day. Hopefully with that funds that we're collecting, we can put that towards fixing Country Drive that's been completely destroyed during this project. So we have some projects that we've laid out, and I actually just put a slide out on our Facebook page if you want to go check it out. It has a little more detail as far as projects go. You say, well, why is wildlife fisheries on there? When it comes to spraying waterways in a lot of areas with lilies, it's actually wildlife and fisheries that does it. And we've been having a conversation with them about instead of waiting until they get their funding in July, about doing some spraying in in the spring. What's interesting is that everybody talked about the freeze killing the lilies. We had the worst freeze in 135 years. It didn't kill the lilies, by the way. And everybody was just like, man, them lilies is tough lilies. Hopefully that company can come get them and put them into some products. But we are working on trying to get into the marshes and further back in the areas and kill the lilies and working to make sure that that's all maintained and kept up better. And we're doing that by working with wildlife fisheries, working with DOTD, and having these conversations. And so these are, again, some of the projects that we're working on in 2025. And if you go to our Facebook page, you can see a list of projects that we've talked about. I mean, it's overlaying Grand Kaya, doing some things with Main Street and getting that overlaid. So a lot of the potholes on those roads are caused from drainage issues. So they got to fix the drainage before they fix the road. And we're working with DOTD to get this information updated and let everybody know what's going on as it happens. So any questions on this? All right. That's my movie. I hope you enjoyed it. Give good reviews. We love to get 5-star reviews on IMDb with this movie you've seen today. No. I thank you for making the time, and I'm here to answer any other questions you may have. Tell you all good, and we're done. I know why you came. Let me ask you a question first before you I answer. Maybe in case I don't answer your question or the right question. Oh, look at her. She's like, I got a question. Come on.
You know what it's about, so we'll just talk.
I just want to hear your question. Just give me your question. Just
What we gonna do with the FEMA trailer park?
Okay. Glad you said that.
Because I know, look, I know there's stuff being talked about with trailer parks, RV parks, tiny homes, all this good stuff. I go every third Thursday downtown, listen to they're trying to put together some regulations on it.
That's what everybody else did.
They're going to try to put a set of regulations on it. They're working on that. And since it's not, I'm going to use the word developed, but the area, the RV park could start tomorrow. I know for a fact, sitting back, talking to Schriever Fire Department. I'm doing work at the waterworks over there. Talking to different people around me and different stuff. The schools. That was one of the worst ideas they could have done. It just populated everybody into one district. They couldn't handle it. That was number one. Number two, it was thrown together so fast that I know the contractors personally, and I was out there. Stuff was put in undersized on purpose, so it would have to be turned back to raw land. I was one of them that subdivided the layout and went to the parish and got it approved to be a subdivision at that point in time. So sitting back, listening to all these different things, right around the parish over the years, and look, I'm not against development. My business used to be. It was all about development. The only thing I have about RV parks, or mobile home parks, or tiny home parks, whatever y'all want to call them, is they got to have a buffer zone between established subdivisions where there's 300,000 to whatever size house is built, some type of buffer zones between the two. It could be 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, I don't care. There was an old parish president that always said that sometimes some things are just not developable. You just can't develop it. It just makes no sense. Price-wise, government-wise, everything. And I have to believe that. So I guess back to my original thing is, when are we going to start tearing this thing back and turning it back to what it's supposed to be? Raw land. No.
So we've exchanged some emails with FEMA, and we had some emails go back and forth today. FEMA has said their goal is to restore it back to what it was before, right? We do not have, and this is something that we're working with the Planning and Zoning Commission to do what they have to do to recommend it to the council. We only have permits for trailer parks. We don't have permits for RV parks, right? So it's tiny homes. It's a gap.
Right.
So we're working on trying to get that done. The problem with that is once that's passed, it's going to be everything moving forward, right? Stuff's going to be grandfathered in. It was told to us, and Chris is back here. You can correct me if I'm wrong on anything. It was told to us that the owners told FEMA they had permits for an RV park. We don't give permits for RV parks. So right now, we have reached out to the Department of Health, Board of Health, to see if they have a permit. Once we get the answer, which we think we know there, but depending on what that answer is going to be, it's going to what we can do to take our next step. Again, pushing back on FEMA, going to whatever level we got to go up to that says this was supposed to be restored back to its original use. Again, Congress people or wherever we got to work with at that level, my commitment is that it gets restored back to the use what it was before. And then hopefully that everything else gets passed and we have everything else you're talking about.
Well, I do know in the past, FEMA has cut deals with property owners and left stuff behind so they ain't got to pay to turn it back. The water lines are inadequate in that side of that subdivision. I know for a fact because I know the contractor. He told me, he said, Renee, I live right up the road from you.
Right.
You know what we're going to do. I said, I know what you're going to do. So 100% of it needs to be turned back. But every time I look at that big sewer treatment plant, that's a big expense sitting in that park.
So that's true. We were told by a contractor that they have the orders to take that plant and move it to, is it Alabama? Alabama.
Okay.
But that's supposed to be gone, right? Now, for that person to go back to Board of Health and apply for another one, when it comes to that whole process, there is no permit through us to do that. One of the conversations that we are talking about doing is expanding what's zonable throughout the parish. I can tell you the last time they did that, it failed because people don't want to be zoned. But then you end up with the issues like the pond and this RV park and everything else. And so, what's that? Right, so if you look at, the ultimate goal would be you'd have to put zoning throughout the parish, but that's been fought heavily in the past. So,
well, and you're right, 100%. But there's another way of getting around without changing the zonings. If you start saying, and if Chris is back there, some type of buffer zones between established subdivisions. If you have established subdivision,
Chris is giving us a thumb up, but nothing for RV parks right now, right? I mean, that's something that's got to be
any development. Any development.
Right, but if the park gets put in, if the park is in there today,
it's done. Yeah,
it's done.
That's right.
Right, and that's
because it's not
the joys of government, by the way. It's got to go to council. It's got to sit 2 weeks. It's got to do this. It's got to do that.
The property owner's rights, and I know that because it's not zoned. But that's one of the things that I'm not against RV parks. Like I said, I designed one over there in Koto. It's a nice looking one over there and over there, but he's not next to a subdivision.
Right.
A couple of trailers across the road, but it's not established subdivisions. So buffer zones around subdivisions, I think that's one of the things that we should be looking at.
Right.
If you can't zone them, fight it a different way.
Right. And we're talking about where are we at? The Planning Zone Commission's going to get their recommendation to the council. Council's going to put up, it's hard for me to believe that RVs wouldn't be added to the trailer parks with buffer zones and everything else. At this point, we're still relying on FEMA to stick to their word, which is we're going to put it back to what it was before, and whoever we have to have a conversation with to try to make that happen. Because look, if I had a house built right there, I'd be mad too. Like, I understand. If somebody did that to me where I live downtown, I'd be mad. So, it's one of the situations where if people would have known would they have built the houses and that whole conversation. So,
and look, it's the same thing like the houses right on the other side of the field. There was building for, yes. What's going on with that? Because I heard some horror stories about that right now. That's being turned to Section 8s because they can't fill it.
So
true?
Right now the process is that OCD doesn't want anything to do with it. The parish doesn't have the ability and stuff to manage it. They tried to get TITA to do it. Now they're talking about working with South Central Planning to get it transferred over to them and then to look at what opportunities there are once that's done. And Chris, maybe you could clarify as far as what can or can't be done once that all happens and who that has to go through. But right now, until it transfers over to South Central Planning, there's nothing happening with it right now. So, yeah.
Last week, and I was in there, and I thought they were talking about the Lulu's trailer park or whatever they call the thing, and they had no copy of this. Now, this is available on the internet. They said they were going to give you a copy of it, but it does say in there, it's on number 14, but they're going to.
That's the one? Okay.
But anyway, they are supposed to turn it back, like you're talking
Yes.
about. Once they move the trailers out, they have to turn it back. But it also says the owners can get an agreement with somebody. Now, who do they get an agreement from? And what type of an agreement would they have to go with? Number one, could they put up an RV park? Could they get an agreement for somebody to put an RV park there or something? I mean, that's just there's some wording in there that's confusing.
I could tell you we sent a letter that says we want it to be put back like it was.
Okay.
I'd be very surprised that FEMA would try to strike any agreement with the parish entity saying we want it to be put back like it was.
I got one. Come on. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
I bothered him last time. So
The agreement that document refers to is the lease, which
Okay.
we do have copies of. And the
Right.
lease doesn't say anything about removing the infrastructure. That's one problem.
okay.
So that lease is between that property owner, and it's not FEMA, it's another agency of the federal government that executes leases for property, for private property. So it's kind of like how the state, when they did their temporary housing, or sorry, not the temporary housing, the New Isle subdivision, the lease was, or the property owner rather, was, the Louisiana Land Trust or something like that, that was set up for ownership of property. So FEMA kind of operates that way. They have another agency that executes lease agreements for private properties. And they have an identical one for the one out on Gage Court too.
Okay.
And we're looking for that document for the Gage Court site.
I got you. Well, I have one other question or one other thing I want to say. There's no gate there. And there's some little plastic, I don't know what they are. They look like Tinker Toys or whatever. But anyway, we have people going in there all the time, and they're racing their four-wheelers and motorcycles. We've had gunfire going on over there. We've had cars racing in there. Somebody needs to tell these people to secure that thing somehow or another.
So after we met, the next day I sent all of that information to Angel Rogers, who's with FEMA. She's the one that's been communicating with us, and she's supposed to be getting all of that addressed. And TPSO was also on that same email thread.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah,
Like those barriers. Yeah.
it's just, I can move. My wife could move them. There's not any.
So we'll do, well, it may be dark, but I'll get pictures of it and send pictures of what's out there to Angel, and so she can see for herself what we're talking about. Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody, I don't know if any vagrancy or anything else is going on around there. I don't live right next to it, but I agree with you. There needs to be a buffer zone or something. You got these $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000 houses, and then this thing right on the other side of the fence.
But the last conversation that FEMA told us is that they were looking to get it removed. And then, well, when I say looking to get it removed, they were going down the road of getting it removed. And then this conversation came up about a permit. So it could be as simple as the property owner saying, I got a permit. Well, they get to us and they say, did y'all give him a permit? We didn't give him a permit. Did y'all give him a permit? Did y'all give him a permit? And if nobody gave a permit, then it's coming back to FEMA and saying, the parish wants it back what it was before. And if you can't help me, then I need to go find somebody else that can. And that's. Does it say it or does it not say it? Right. Right. So we have one document that says it gets put back like it was, and the lease don't say anything at all. Right. So it's ambiguity. Can't say it. Give me the word. There you go. That word right there. I ran out of words today. I'm sorry. Gray area. I really like that. I have to learn that word. Anyway, that's where, again, it's a conversation, and I believe the right pressure's got to be put in the right places to make sure that. And again, I mean, I just asked the question of, again, if whoever owns that property, if that happened next to their house, what would they do? That's the only question I would have. Right. Right. Yep. That's everything we're gonna use. Everything that we come together to use, or why it needs to be undone, is the fight that we're gonna fight.
Designed and installed for simple.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I talked to Sobear too, and the water board's condition of approval on providing water was that it be, and that's in their minutes.
I feel like we do. Right. So we're just crossing these as we get to them. Right. This happens. Let's have that conversation. What's
That's real private property. We need to go exhaust all of our. Right, but before we go down that road, because when we get to that point, if we're in front of a judge, tell me what you did, explain what you did, the proper channels, and if stones unturned, proper channels, then he's just gonna kick it right back. So you go turn. I think Jason's saying is pushing at FEMA until we're not satisfied with.
which pretty soon is gonna be the president because they're moving it. I don't know if you heard about that or not. But one of the bills they're working on is trying to get it to where it's a cabinet, not where it's at now. So
And there is a FEMA public comment period that the feds put out. Hey, if you want to know all of your experience, I know, right? We're at 7 pages counting, but I mean, that's something. I'm not sure if there's a link on the website.
we had shared something, or we're gonna share something. Let me follow up on that. But we were gonna share that comment out. We might have shared it. I just need to double check and see if we did.
So I would encourage all of you to maybe IT like back up.
Right.
So it's y'all to find the link and go and tell that story. Here it is, your document.
And if and
Now you're
fill
trying
out
to
the
change the
information
rules.
that you're here today, that's how we can get the information to you to let you know. Go here and fill it out. Yeah, John, we can let John know.
You know,
Yeah. Okay. I need to see if I'm on your water plant page. I need to check that out. Well, I know I was on pages, but I wasn't commenting. I just early on. Now, well, I'm talking about I was running for office. I just didn't feel like it was right to do that. That's just me. Okay. Yep. No, anything we could do to spread the word and get the information out. So, our goal is to keep everybody informed as it happens, and to let y'all know that we've officially sent a letter, and that's our stance. That's what we're pushing on.
Could be, might be. Whether it's gonna be an alien space landing station.
You let me know how to cut them rumors out. I'll pay you some good money. I would, yes, 100%.
yes.
Travis, is it beneficial to call the cops every time you see something?
Sheriff's office.
Well, but you call Travis too, no. But no, we say it all the time. Like when I have a problem in my neighborhood, I'll let them know. You know, we got speeding issue going on in my neighborhood right now. I was like, hey. Right. If they don't know, they can't fix it. And if they could see we got 30 calls on this, that gives them information to see we have a problem, right? Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 30.
We could turn that, a summary of those reports. We could turn that over to FEMA,
Yep.
or our congressman or Trump if it goes that far, and say, look, this is what we're having to deal with on something you guys, rammed into. Yeah.
I would call them in. And I guess is there any way we collect that lost sale?
Was there an agent involved? Do you remember who? Right.
Email it to me, please. Thank you. Yeah, look, anytime you have a problem, report it. That way, I mean, that's no different than when we talk about having permits for roofs, right? Where you're able to take that data and provide that down the road. Same thing from a law enforcement perspective that says we've, and I don't know, I mean, if you haven't, have y'all been calling? Like, could we go to sheriff's office now and say, how many complaints have you had in this area? Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'd call. Let's get the data together that support, that everything we could do to have a good argument from our perspective,
But the reports, I mean, some of them may be the same, but now, I mean, based on what we were talking about at that subdivision review committee meeting that you attended, I mean, now that what you're getting are basically trespassing, people shooting rifles, like sighting in rifles and stuff. I mean, all kinds of
I'd call.
like stuff that before, when people were living there, it was things like speeding and
Right.
knocking on doors in the middle of the night and all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. It sort of
Just call it in and let law enforcement sort it out, you know?
historically it is that that's the landowner has to say it's trespassing, but
But
Right.
FEMA could tell the sheriff's office, and they communicate regularly on this deal because they're on the same thread that email that Jason was talking about earlier. Sheriff's office is on it too, and so if FEMA's telling the sheriff's office, look, nobody's supposed to be there, except for our contractors, but certainly nobody's supposed to be there after hours moving barricades around and going in and cutting donuts in the parking lot and stuff. I would think they should have something.
but the property owner,
Yeah.
that's gonna be the property. back
Us
to the
rule
property owner.
followers. Until FEMA, I guess until their lease officially is terminated. Right.
Right.
That's why I'm saying we need to alert FEMA, and so that they can go down and put signs out and do all the things that they should be doing.
Can
I
you
mean, when
check
people
into-
were in there, they had a security service, but
Can
I'm
you
sure
kinda
they're
see
not there now,
what
right?
history there is and try to collect that info
Yeah.
with TPSO?
Yeah,
And
Favaloro's
I would
on
say
the
that
thread.
moving forward, I'd call every time you got a problem. We got to keep Tim busy, right? We got to give him something to do, right? I mean, no, that's true. I said that, Tim. That's to you. All right. That's it. Thank you. I asked earlier. We could have talked about this first thing if y'all wanted to, but I know. I'm just messing with y'all. Well, thank y'all for coming. And our team worked hard. Look, I got to give it everybody that's here, everybody that's not here with our team. I'd put our team up against everybody in the state that we have the best directors and employees in the world. Hard working, dedicated, and willing to do everything they can to take care of our residents. So I thank y'all for making the time. I think time's our most valuable resource, and I appreciate y'all giving us some of yours. And together, we can move everyone forward. So God bless y'all, and thank y'all for coming.